Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall, who is woefully underprepared and taking a sip of water as the video begins. But that's unprofessionalism for you at its greatest. Welcome back to the Franchise Tag Podcast. Welcome back to another divisional preview. Welcome back, Sky and Adam, our experts on all things NFL, or they so like to think, maybe. I don't know. I'm just going to brush their
Adam
ego
was
a
the
little
face
bit.
there. How dare he? We're experts.
Expert?
Come on. I am.
I mean, we try. Let's put it that way.
Exactly, and the only thing you can do is to try hard. So, right, tonight we're divisional preview. The last week was about the AFC and NFC South. We are moving on to the AFC and NFC North today. My speciality and Adam's speciality, but then again, I've just said we're experts, and this is where we trip up and we say everything wrong about our division. But yeah, we'll crack off with the AFC North for this week. We'll do AFC teams, and we'll start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll start with Sky to begin with. The Bengals, who last year had a turbulent season because of the Joe Burrow injury, hoping to bounce back. I mean, they lost a lot of the key defensive pieces last year as well. What's the Bengals season going to be looking like for you, Sky?
Yeah, so it's sort of like you get to this point now with Zach Taylor's sort of tenure, and you want to analyze it in a bit more detail, right? And they've had the league's 20th best record since he was hired, but then the 6th best record since 2021. So there's obviously been progress. We know they've had a Super Bowl appearance. As much as I love this offense, love Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, you've got the question mark over can Burrow stay healthy. And I think the big question around that defense was the Bengals allowing the second most completions at 20 plus yards last season. So, that's obviously in a league where it's offensively heavy, as good as your offense can be. If your defense can't keep other offenses off the field, it asks a lot of your whole team overall. I still think they're a playoff team, but probably them more than most, it comes down to needing to be healthy to sort of cover the cracks of, like you said, losing defensive pieces, having, issues there. But if there's anyone in this division who's going to push the Ravens, for me, it's them.
Sporting a new bad boy look as well, Adam, sort of an Eminem looking hairdo for Joe Burrow. Do you think, does this team depend completely on how fit he is?
I was worried where you were going there. I thought you were saying that I was the one.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
This means if the Bengals win the Super Bowl, Adam has to bleach his hair blonde. This is where I think.
I feel fairly confident that won't happen. So, I think they've got a strong chance of doing reasonably well, but my concern isn't actually Burrow. I know that obviously he's missed time and through injuries, but I think he's just going to come back, slot right back in as he did, and I think they'll be really really good. My real concern for them is I feel like the defense is kind of the issue a little bit. I feel like they've maybe lost a few players. That have been around for a long time. Someone like DJ Reader is someone that they've lost in free agency. That's a big name who does really well for them. They didn't really, what I would say, bring in any sort of amazing players on the defense, and so I don't really feel like they've moved the needle that much when it comes to that. They've brought in a couple of defensive linemen through the draft who I think will do pretty well, and they are still a contender. All the time you've got Burrow and Chase there, they are a contender to win everything. But to me, it feels like the defense has maybe taken a little bit of a step back compared to what it was a couple of years ago, and that's probably the biggest concern for me.
I think a couple of years ago, it was almost like it was a tandem. It worked really well, defense and offense. It was both quite strong, quite new in a way, and a lot of players got to their prime at a really good time. And now, like I said, I think the offense is a bit more powerful than this defense is. Putting my NFL cap on rather than my Steelers cap on, I really hope that Burrow is healthy the whole year. I think he's in that top 5, top 3 conversation for me at quarterback. When he is healthy, he's just such a phenom and so great to watch. And that link with him, Jamar Chase, is got to be one of the deadliest combinations in the NFL. Let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, had a fantastic season last year, Adam. Lamar Jackson winning the MVP award. Do you think his progression continues and he's going to be in that hunt again? And is he also the key to this Ravens team?
Yeah, I think they are. I think, again, they're an amazing team, and obviously Jackson is the head of that team as the quarterback. I would be surprised if they didn't end up being they're favourites for this division. I'd be surprised if they don't win it, to be honest. I think although it's going to be very tight amongst all these teams, this is one of the divisions where you sort of think all 4 teams could have a winning record. That is how good all of these 4 are. But yeah, I mean, I really like the Ravens for it. I think they've kept Jim Harbaugh, Todd Monken as well. So the offense is going to pretty much be the same. They've improved in some really good areas. They didn't go mental. They didn't go on a spending spree, but they did bring in Derrick Henry, which, as we all know, is going to be great for them. I think Josh Jones at left tackle was another one they brought in as well, who I actually think will be quite good. They got rid of a lot of players during free agency, but to me, although there's a lot of guys that have gone that were stalwarts on the team, Patrick Queen, obviously, as we will speak about, went to the Steelers. Morgan Moses, Josh Simpson, these guys on their team that, although they might not be massive names, they were really good for their system and they went really well. So I think that it's going to be a very different looking Ravens team in respect of the roster. But again, they're just a team that does really well every single year. They draft really well. I was really impressed with the draft. I think Nate Wiggins is going to be great for them at corner, and that's, you always need more corners. But they brought in so many guys that are good. They're still Super Bowl contenders. Arguably should have got to the Super Bowl this year and kind of just sort of fluffed it at the end, didn't they, against the Chiefs? Yeah. But you sort of feel like they're a team that should do well. I like them to win 12, 13 games relatively easy. The problem for them, I think, is their fellow division mates. But apart from that, really good team.
I just said a moment ago about Cincinnati, Scott, a few years ago, having that perfect tandem of defense and offense being both in a really, really good spot. Is that what we can describe this Baltimore Ravens team as now? Because when you look at both sides of the ball, it's just got playmakers, talent, the perfect guys for that Ravens system, right?
Yeah, I think I've done that natural thing where I've looked at the losses, like Adam said, like even Kevin Zietler on the O-line, Ronald Darby going in the secondary, but they did draft well. Like Adam said, I think Harbaugh, maybe you can see that he saw that coming. And, when Lamar's coming off a season with like 76.4% completion percentage, such a good touchdown to interception ratio, we can have as many question marks as we want about them in the playoffs, because that is the bit that will be the media talk come January, how they don't turn up when that happens. But I think regular season wise, when you bring in a future Hall of Fame running back like Derrick Henry, they are the favourites, and I think they are built to contend. They just need to sort of make sure that they can continue it's easier said than done, but they won 10 of their last 11 games last season, so that just shows how strong they can be. But like Adam said, with this division in general, last season all 4 teams had a winning record, so this is probably the one out of the 8 where weirdly anything could happen. But yeah, going into the season, obviously the Ravens are the favourites.
Yeah, and it's really interesting.
The one thing with them, because a lot of people have kind of come out and said new defensive coordinator in Zach, or that's kind of like a little bit because it is in-house. It's not like he's come from another system. He's come from the same system. So I would imagine it will just continue to be the same. And yeah, they just look like a really good team.
Yeah, don't fix what ain't broken, sort of thing.
Exactly.
He's been there like on the coaching staff for a number of years as well. So yeah, I agree. I don't think it's as big as people are making out.
I'm going back to the point, but you were saying about interception to touchdown ratio with Lamar. What has impressed me most about Lamar Jackson his whole career is his development that he has done as a thrower. I mean, everyone talks about when he came in, he didn't run at the combine. Is he more of a running back or wide receiver sort of thing with Lamar? Can he even throw? He can't throw, some people say, and he's just come leaps and bounds developing that, and I've been so impressed by that again with my NFL cap on rather than the Steelers cap on. It's so great seeing that his dynamic play has not just been him keeping the ball on the ground. It is now developing his throw and how much he can push the ball down the field. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns, my least favorite team in this division. Adam, a team that, they did that trade for Deshaun Watson a few years ago. didn't play for a bit and was suspended. Every year, it's like, you look at this team, JOK have just re-signed, Myles Garrett, Deshaun Watson, they brought in Jerry Jeudy, they got Mari Cooper. Like, this team has got stars on it, and yet it just doesn't ever feel like it's fully clicking all the way to go on a real deep playoff run year on year. Do you think this may be their year this year?
I mean, a lot of this is going to depend on Watson, isn't it? I mean, that is what it is. The issue with him is that it just felt like he didn't really come back to the Deshaun Watson that we all remember at the Texans. And if he can get back to that, then yeah, I mean, he will be that guy. But you do just sort of think the amount of time that he's missed, the sort of almost like the pressure that really he's put on himself of the, the actions that he's done over the years is probably not helping the situation. They did go 4-1 in the last 5 games last year, and normally when that happens, it's a good sign. It sort of shows that they've done something, but that was with Joe Flacco, and that's where it kind of feels a little bit like this is what the problem is. It all boils down to what kind of Deshaun Watson are we getting? The team in general, I think they didn't really do that much. I kind of felt like they lost a few players, but none of them I would come out and say were massive for them. They re-signed a few, again, not really. I mean, Zadarius Smith was kind of their big money, re-sign. As you said, Jerry Jeudy coming in was kind of the big sort of like guy coming in from another team. And even in the draft, they didn't have many picks, so they didn't really do a great deal in that either. I think Michael Hall looks useful, although I think he's got some problems at the moment, hasn't he? He's had a few issues. So yeah, I mean, I think they're a competitor. I think they could win the division. They have the potential. If you get that sort of Deshaun Watson from a few years ago, then they could win this division. I don't know. It's difficult. I personally, I don't see it because I just don't see why he's suddenly going to become an amazing player now.
Yeah.
Do you think, Sky, that if they do have a poor season after this season, that it may be time to press the reset button, even though they spent so many draft picks on getting Deshaun Watson there, all the money and everything like that? Do you think it might be time to shake some trees?
Yeah, you need to just cut your losses, because when you've got Zadarius Smith being signed, Myles Garrett, Jordan Hicks, they're one of the best defensive units in the NFL. So I think if the offense doesn't pull its weight this season, you just have to sort of pull the carpet out and say he's gone. Not out inside. Well, maybe just go sign someone else. I used to love Deshaun Watson as well. I feel like we've spoken about this before, Fred. He used to be so good. Like, you could have even argued top 5 at one point, top 10 when he was. I agree. So it's such a shame. And I think, look, again, I'm a massive Nick Chubb fan, but he's coming off of a second serious knee injury. And I mean, if anyone's going to come back and defy the odds, it could be him. But I don't think even that's going to be enough for them to, win this division. And I think the main thing that I had to look at was the schedule. From week 6, they've got the Eagles, Bengals, Ravens, and Chargers. Then they've got a bye in week 10, and to finish the season, they got the Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, and Ravens. So it's kind of like I see stretches there where I'm looking at them and going, they could probably be 1-3 in both of those stretches. I don't see it in a way where I'm looking at 3-1s.
Just quickly under the Deshaun Watson thing, I just had a quick look. I mean, there is no out in this contract.
Really?
Not really. I mean, it's horrific to be brutally honest. The cap hit, obviously you can restructure stuff and change things around, but the cap hit, if you want to escape from this contract, you're looking at 63 million for this year, next year, in 2026, and 2027 is 8.9. So it's like there isn't a lot of wiggle room here. It's like you can't. I mean, obviously the hope is that the cap goes up and everyone has more money to spend, but even still, it's like I don't think him, being able to reset and get rid of him is really a thing they can do, because obviously it was all guaranteed money, wasn't it? So that's the problem.
I think you just have to. I know it's not like sometimes you've got to be a trendsetter or do something different. I remember last year there were talks already in November, how can they get out of it? And I think they were saying that if they cut him this off season, it would have been like 130 mil loss or something. But obviously it will go down, or even a reset in a way where you do a tactical thing where you draft a quarterback, as a project. You've still got Watson there, whereas like you said, Adam, they were relying on Joe Flacco to somehow, I don't know what voodoo he's got, but he always pulls some magic out, and they can't just be relying on a random vet to carry them each year. So,
and also they don't have him, do they? He's not there now. They got Jameis Winston instead, and it's like,
and I like Jameis Winston, and I mean that and I don't just mean as I'm not saying like viable starter, but he put up numbers on the Bucks. He was decent at the Saints. You do look at someone like that and go, if Watson went down this season, at least he's got a point to prove in terms of like, he wants to potentially still be a starter for a number of years to come. It's not a Flacco where he's knocking on retirement's door. So whilst we don't wish injuries on anyone, maybe that could be a blessing in disguise for the Browns scenario-wise.
Well, there needs some blessings in disguise in my point of view as a Steelers fan. So we'll move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously my favourite subject. Sky, I mean, it's not great really going into a season with a bit of a quarterback controversy with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, both quarterbacks of the Pittsburgh Steelers at the minute. We saw, I don't think we saw Wilson take the field for the Steelers in the first preseason game, but we did see Fields. Mixed bag. With Fields playing that game, a lot of criticism, but some positives as well. How do you see this season going for Pittsburgh?
Oh, it's so tough for me because I have to put like bias aside. Like, not that I don't like this. Well, I don't really, but what I mean is, I really like Russell Wilson. I really like Justin Fields, but I just think I won't go into all the numbers. When you look at Wilson over the last couple of seasons, he's like quite low down in a lot of key categories. I mean, obviously they've got nothing to lose with the veteran deal they gave him. But then I feel like they're not going to do it, and I wouldn't do it. But it's annoying that you can't just buy in and go, right, that's our guy. Because obviously there is all this talk about Justin Fields being dynamic. I'm still a believer he can be a starter in the league, but that's hard to sort of do when you're not getting first-team reps and you're sharing them with a veteran who's won a Super Bowl and been great for a number of years. I think the biggest thing for you guys, obviously, is how good the defense is, and you've got TJ Watt. I know we spoke about all of the teams in this division other than the Bengals having good defenses, but what is the difference maker? You have great defenses, but then you have good ones with one standout guy. He can carry a team. I know he got injured a little bit last season, but Mike Tomlin must love having him because it's basically keeping your guys' non-losing record thing alive for him. But I really don't know where to put the Steelers because there's been, even trade rumors at receiver, so many things. I think this is going to be one of those teams I need to wait and see. I know it's only 4 weeks, but I think I need another 4 weeks to decide. Adam's pulling their face, but I don't know what to say about them.
I think it's a face that says I've already decided. So we'll move on to Adam for his go on this.
Well, I think we know what the Steelers are because the Steelers have been the same for God knows how many years, and I don't really see anything changing from that. It's like, I mean, they went 10-7 last year. I've got a ceiling of 11 and a floor of 9. I mean, this is what they are. They're going to do exactly the same again. I don't see anything changing. I thought the defense is top 10 easily. I think it's a great defense that they've got there. Obviously lost Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace, who were used a lot of snaps up. But the thing is that they have bought in Dante Jackson and spent a bit of money there. And I think that the defense just in general is just really, really good. And that will be what gets them to where they get to. When it comes to the offense, I thought when they rushed the ball, they looked okay, like pretty solid last year. They looked good. I think that will improve this year because Arthur Smith just loves to rush the ball. So I think that will improve. But the problem is that the passing offense is not great. Now, you've got Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, which I think we can all come out and say is better than Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett.
True.
You got to think that that's going to improve the passing game. So, although I've got a ceiling of 11, and last year you went 10-7, although I think most of it is going to stay the same, I think you do have that potential to maybe just throw in that passing play, that big play that maybe will be slightly different to what you had last year. I don't think they did a great deal. Patrick Queen was the big sort of money move that they went for. So there wasn't a lot in the off season. I don't feel like I say, apart from the corners and Mason Cole as well, he could be a potential big loss. But then in the rookies, you brought in Zach Frazier to cover that, who looks really good, was really good at West Virginia. Love Fatanu. Think he's going to be great for you on your O-line. And yeah, I think just a few decent depth pieces there. I mean, Roman Wilson will be a good slot receiver for you. Obviously, you've still got George Pickens. There's all these rumours about Brandon Ayuk. I mean, it doesn't feel like a Steelers move, I have to say. It feels splashy, and that's not what they do. But yeah, they're going to be very competitive, I think.
You say that, but we did splash a first round pick on Minka Fitzpatrick all them years ago. So, it's sort of...
I mean, the fact that you had to end that sentence with all them years ago tells you that you don't do it very often.
Years ago. It was, 5 years ago now, maybe 6 years ago? No, I suppose we don't do it very often. I mean, my ceiling is 12 and my lowest is 6. I think we...
No.
I
like that.
I just know, because I just think that there is some teams in there that have drastically improved. What I look when I went on the when I was on the Across the Pod podcast the other night as a Steelers fan, talking with Andy and Freddie Harper Davis over there. When I looked at their schedule, we have got to go good out the blocks. Our first 8 games, I think, before the bye, that could be easily 8-9. Like, it could easily be 8-9. That sounds really drastic, but that schedule is quite easy for a lot of teams. If it was any other team, I'd say it'd be easier, but for Steelers, it's going to be a little bit chalky. But if we have got a horrendous back end, with all of our divisional games are in them last 6 weeks. I think we play the Bengals, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and end on the Bengals in a row. It is a tough slog in that last bit. So if we don't get out the blocks early, which we tend to not get out the blocks very early, we tend to end seasons better when we do start them. It's got to be the other way around this year. But enough about my season. Let's just talk about the division as a whole then. So, Sky, where do you think this division is lining up? Well, who's the winner in this? I agree. You said earlier this could be a division where all the teams are on winning records. I agree. I think it could be the exact same.
Yeah, I think the only reason I would steer against that, I do believe that. The only reason I'm going against it because it happened last year. I'm like, really, again? Like, I think one of the Browns or the Steelers, I think, could be 8 and 9. And then the other, an 8 and 9, a 9 and 8, and then I see the Bengals and Ravens both with double-digit wins. I think I'm quite certain on that if they're healthy. I kind of want to go out. My outside pick, I'd love to see the Bengals win it, but I just think that when the Ravens have gone and added Derrick Henry, you'd be silly to go against the Ravens. So I'd probably go Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns. And the reason I'm putting Browns last, and if I'm confident about any team having that losing record before it's them, they remind me of, how everyone was hyping up the Giants last year when really they had a bit of an easier schedule the year before and they caught teams off guard. That's how I feel a bit about with the Browns. Like, the quarterback plays the same. They were a feel-good Cinderella story at the back end of last year, but I just think there's games in there, like I said, where I can see a couple of 1-3 stretches and them to be the bottom of the barrel of the 4.
And what about yourself, Adam? Is that how you've got it lined up as well?
I've got Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns.
There we go. We agree.
I think the Browns are the team that are most likely to drop off because of Deshaun Watson. And although you might say that you think that Jameis Winston can do bits, I don't think I think Flacco is better. So I think because of that, that's probably where it go. The Bengals are the team that are most likely to be able to improve the most, I think, because if you keep Burrow fit, then I think they'll just go back to what they were. The defense not quite as good, but still. And I'm sorry, I can't see a Steelers team only winning 6 games under Mike Tomlin. It's just not going to happen. Everyone's been going against them for years, and it just doesn't happen. So it's like they're going to grind out results. They will win games that they shouldn't win, and they will lose games that they should have destroyed the team in. But I just don't see them as being this team that would go down to that sort of thing, no matter who they're playing. I just think they're too good for that. So I think it'd be very tight. I think they could all have winning records, but the Ravens are the team that I think are the cut above.
Yeah, I think they're AFC Championship bound in my brain. Like Ravens are that it's AFC Championship.
They really should be.
They really should be. And it's interesting what you said. To rephrase sort of what you said, Adam, is that the Steelers have done all this with Russ Wilson and they're going to be probably in the exact same position. I think the difference will be, I think it's going to be more exciting football. I think you're winning.
Well, I don't know. With Arthur Smith, who knows?
But you're winning.
I didn't even want to mention his name.
Yeah, you're winning certain ways and you're losing certain ways, don't you? And we were winning in a way last season, but was not enjoyable. I said it to you guys before, even when we were in the playoffs. I was very comfortable with us going behind by about 5 games in after we went behind again, and then got back and won, because it seemed to be just our format is we go behind, but we'd still be able to eke out the win. I think this time we may have games that are a bit more of a dominating win or more exciting win, and hopefully it will be. We might end on the same result as last year, but I think it will be done with a bit more style, hopefully. And I know you laugh about Alf Smith, but Alf Smith was a great coordinator in previous jobs. I think he didn't do well as a head coach, but he was very, very good coordinator. So
I think he'll be perfect for you because you like to run the ball. Like I really do think it'll work quite well. It's just that obviously, like you say, as head coach, maybe not the most exciting, but yeah.
Well, let's finish up our chat about the AFC North, and we'll start to veer towards the NFC North, the division that very well, Adam. Exciting division. A division we're getting to see on Hard Knocks at the minute as well with Chicago Bears. So I definitely recommend people watching that. I believe the first episode is now out online and on the app, on the Zone and everything like that. So go check out. It is a lot of fun. It's always good to see behind the doors of teams as well. We will, while we're doing that, my mum is ringing me. I don't think she would want to be on the podcast unless it means she's not watching. Mum, I'm on the podcast. Come on, you got what?
Who's going to win the NFC North?
Maybe she doesn't like your take on the Steelers only winning 6 games. I mean, maybe that's what it was.
Maybe that's it. But either way, just look on your YouTube and you'll see your son on camera. I can't answer the phone right now. I do apologise. The Lions will begin with right now. God, I can't stop laughing at that. I'm going to have to text in a minute while you guys are talking. But the Lions to begin with is what I was saying. Then we're going to start off with them. Sky. Sorry, Adam. We'll go to you. In fact, no, we'll go to Sky first because then I'm going to talk about Packers next. So we'll talk about Lions first. I mean, probably one of my favourite teams to talk about in the NFL. They're trying to FaceTime me now. One of my favourite teams to talk about in the NFL. I really do adore this team. I will be definitely waving the flag again for them to go towards the NFC Championship. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. And realistically, I know we all spoke about after that title game loss, they probably could have and should have made the Super Bowl. Teams who are in that position, they just got to get back there now because now they've got the target on their back. But I do think Jared Goff is a guy who can rise to that occasion. He had his best passing percentage completion as a starter. I looked, it was 67.3%. And that was not just on any random amount of attempts. He had 605 passing attempts. It's only the second time in his career that he's thrown over 600 passes, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. The scheme that they've got over there when you've got, Amon-Ra St. Brown at receiver. We saw how good Laporta was at tight end. I feel like we've all raved about Jahmyr Gibbs and we expect him to go into another level this season. And yeah, I think even defensively, people talk about them losing Gardner Johnson at safety, which is a shame. But when you've got an offense that can blow most teams away, they've made additions at corner to sort of, keep the secondary in a good position. And then when you've got Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, I don't really see a big weakness on the Lions. I see them having another good season and going deep in the playoffs again. And like you said, it's an exciting time to watch a team that's, for years was sort of the laughing stock of the NFL. If they can back it up again and be in the playoffs again, I'd be happy for them.
I will certainly be as well. However, Adam, when you as a team that steadily improves, and these teams will go from being quite poor to then really good. What they then have to learn is that the target will be on their back, won't it? The teams are not thinking. Teams are not sleeping on the Detroit Lions anymore. They know what they're about now. They know what the coach is like. They know what this team is, and they know that Jared Goff's their guy. They know the offense. The defense, do you think they're going to be able to cope with that? Because I think last year almost that was the window of people were maybe not sleeping on, but think they were going to improve, but maybe didn't realize how much better they were going to get.
Yeah, I think they probably will. I think that it's one of them things, isn't it, where it's almost like you need to get that experience of winning into a team. I think that's something that they've lacked for many years, but under this head coach, and these players that he has, I feel like he has kind of instilled that a little bit more. And so because of that, I think to a certain extent the pressure, although will be coming from outside the building, I think inside the building it'll be okay, and they'll be like in a position to do something. Last year, I thought they were very good at everything. You look at all of the stats; they were great at everything, but their pass defense was atrocious, and that was where they eventually got found out because of that. When you look at what they've done, they've pretty much spent a lot of money on their guys this year. That's kind of what it is. It's almost like they've gone Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're paying you. Jared Goff, we're paying you. Penei Sewell, we're paying you. These are the guys that are going to get them that bit further. And so because of that, they wanted to do that. And so that makes sense. It's almost like I was saying, kind of like in the building, them guys that are already there, that have already got that sort of Dan Campbell mantra behind them, kind of feels a little bit like, well, these are the guys that are going to get us there. We're going to keep going on that with them. They did bring in some decent players. I thought Carlton Davis, I think that's a great one for them at corner. That's definitely what they needed to do. Kevin Zeitler's come over from the Ravens. DJ Reader's come over also from the AFC North. And then in the draft, they really went for it on corner again with Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. And these two guys, especially Terrion Arnold, I mean, we saw the draft, didn't we? And it was like just the reaction for him. It was insane. And he was loving it. He wants to be the guy. And he looked really good at Alabama. It's someone who you sort of feel like can make the step up and will do well. And they bring in these physical guys. I mean, even Sione Vaki, who's the safety out of Utah, this was like round 4 pick. But he's a very physical safety, and he's going to be someone who I think you will see a bit of on that team in the first year. He does look good, and a lot of these guys are the Dan Campbell mantra. I think they've definitely improved, especially at corner. I think it's obvious that they worked out that was their weakness, and they think that this is the thing they can do. For me, their ceiling's 13. I think that they should win this. They are in the... Now this is what we've got to do, and they have to do it because that Jared Goff contract is not team friendly in any way. It's costing a lot of money for him, but he works for this team. That's the whole point. So now is the time that they really have to do something, and they've got to win it in the next 2 years. They really do. And if they don't, they're going to struggle after that, I'm afraid.
I have to admit, one of my favourite things is when, I don't remember what game it was, but when Dan Campbell in the locker room gave him the ball and said, Jared Goff, you're good enough for Detroit.
Yeah.
That's sort of like LA didn't want you. You took them all that way and they still didn't want you. But, you're good enough for us here. You are fantastic. And he has. He's really sort of he's rewritten his own story, hasn't he, really, in a way. He could have easily been a quarterback but just became a second stringer, dotted around the league. But and Detroit, and Detroit could have probably cut ties with him at some point and drafting a guy or done a little bit of what your team did, I suppose, Adam. But they've not. They've stuck with him. They've stuck with their guns, and they've improved every year. And they definitely go for a character type, don't they? And that's guys that will run through a wall for Dan Campbell.
The irony of the whole thing is that he was basically a throwaway piece in that trade as well. That's what's so bizarre about it.
But he made the Super Bowl with the Rams. And do you know what? I think when you said that thing about Dan Campbell, Fred, I think that was after they beat the Rams in the playoffs. I'm sure he said it. Yeah, I'm sure that was like the running joke all week where like he made a point of being like, you've gone and beat McVay. You've got us a playoff win. Like, you're our guy. So, I think we're all happy for him because he does get overlooked as a quarterback. And the Rams were so good that season when I know they lost to the Patriots, but Todd Gurley was hurt. Like, he's carried teams before. So with the weapons he's got, like, they're definitely contenders.
Let's move on to the Green Bay Packers. Adam, we're going to you. Obviously, you are a man who is kept under the microscope of the Green Packers. Sorry, been looking at Packers under the microscope is what I meant in my phrasing, due to you being a fan of them. This is what happens when you multitask and podcast at the same time. Things happen, mum calls, you never know what's going on. The fun of live podcasting, I suppose. The Green Bay Packers, how are you feeling?
How long do you want me to go on for? I could fill up this one.
Probably between 5 to 7 minutes, and maybe that.
Okay, cool.
Maybe we should
I'll stick to that then. Yeah,
don't give it 7 minutes. Bloody hell.
Yeah, you don't need to talk. It's fine. Look, I think they've got a really good offense, and last year the defense was what let them down last year. I think that's going to change this year. They've changed coordinator. Jeff Hafley's come in, and he looks like he's going to bring a more explosive, exciting defense compared to what we had before under Joe Barry. This is kind of what and part of that reason is bringing in Xavier McKinney, and they're the sort of guys that you want to bring in. I think we're a very good team that's a playoff contender, and someone like Xavier McKinney, who was one of the captains on the Giants, they're the sort of guys that you need to bring in. And so I think that's probably what's going to make the difference for them. It's going to push them on by doing that and bringing that sort of guy in. The offense, really, like we've said all the time, the wide receivers, they're all incredibly young, really good. It doesn't necessarily matter which ones are out there because they can all do it. And that's something that I think is going to become very, very difficult for teams to deal with because you just don't know which one you're going to be up against, or you've got to try and plan for all of them. And it's just incredibly tough to do that. I think Josh Jacobs coming in is a really big positive for the run game. Another captain from another team, this is, again, it's the sort of guy that you want to bring in. And just, he's one of these guys who, it feels like the running game was always kind of a bit secondary to the passing game when Aaron Rodgers was there. I think you're going to see the run game, now that you've got Matt LaFleur actually bringing out what I think is probably more his offense rather than Aaron Rodgers' offense. I think you're going to see a bit more of the run game, and that's going to be really useful. When it comes to the draft, I think they just drafted really, really well again. And it's something that I think Gutekunst doesn't get that many sort of like props for. He does incredibly well when it comes to the draft. Jordan Morgan, a lot of people didn't like Jordan Morgan when they drafted him. They were a bit like, we wanted Graham Barton, who went the pick afterwards, and he was there. Jordan Morgan kind of reminds me of Brian Bulaga. I think it's that kind of guy who's going to be able to go across the line, and he's going to be great. Lots of linebackers have come in. Edgerrin Cooper looks really good. Teron Hopper looks good. Really like Javon Bullard, the safety out of Georgia. I think he's going to be another explosive guy, which will go really well with McKinney. And all in all, just improved a lot through free agency and through the draft. I've got their ceiling at 12. It might be pushing it a little bit. But I think the floor is 9, which is what they did last year. I think, personally, as much as I'd love to say I think they're going to win the division, I think it's going to be probably, they're not quite there yet because I think the Lions are just that little bit further along. But they're in a really good position where they're definitely going to, I would be shocked if they don't make the playoffs, and they have the potential in any one-off game to go out and win.
Well, Sky doing his best Mystic Meg impression by, rather than rubbing a crystal ball, he's rubbing a crystal cat, little Marcus there instead. He did nearly take your the full 7 minutes, so you've got like 2 minutes here to see the future of the Green Bay Packers. And what do you see in that future?
Big improvements, like Adam said. Xavier McKinney coming in for Savage. We spoke about Savage last week. That's a massive upgrade. Josh Jacobs, I respect the fact that the Packers, a team, such a small market team, like Adam said, that has to draft well, have gone out and made a big decision to get rid of a guy like Aaron Jones and go, right, we know we've got a good young quarterback. We've got good young receivers. We've got Reed, they've got Wicks, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs. I think the offense is in position to be high flying. The only thing I would say about Jordan Love, I mean, I feel like I was one of the first people on his hype train. Remember last year when I was saying I think he could probably end up with more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers. That was one of my bold picks before. It was great to see what he did to the Cowboys. I know we joke about them being my second team or whatever, but I was so impressed with what he done in the playoffs. He just needs to be more consistent, and I hope that for him. But yeah, I would put I put them 2 wins behind the Lions, but them making the playoffs. That's where I would see the Packers at.
Let's move on to the stars of Hard Knocks this season, Sky. The Chicago Bears, obviously bringing in the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, new quarterback in town for the Bears. It struck me in their first game in the preseason and on Hard Knocks as well that this team now finally feels like a team with a real sense of direction. How do you see this season going from with their rookie quarterback?
Yeah, I know you spoke about him on Tuesday's show, but I'm all in on Caleb Williams as well. I don't care about all this. I know we all do it, scrutinizing and watching preseason. I just want the real season to start, because I think when it does, the Bears are finally going to be treated to something that they've never had before. You know, this like franchise quarterback. Everyone talks about never having a pass over 4,000 yards, blah, blah, blah. I think he's just got something magic about him, something special. And, they've drafted Rome Odunze. They've got Keenan Allen, who, yes, he's had injury issues in the past. But still, if he can be healthy, that's a great addition. Bringing in DeAndre Swift at running back is great. And I think all these positive things I'm saying about them, whatever happens in the season, floor-wise, I'd probably see them at like 7-8 wins, maximum 11. I don't know if they can make the playoffs, but I just feel like that things could click. But regardless, Bears fans can be optimistic because they've moved on from the Justin Fields saga now, and you've sort of, reevaluated. And like you said, on Hard Knocks, I think we've seen a good team atmosphere. And in Chicago, with a fan base like that, that's sort of something they've longed for years, because they've been in a bit of disarray. So, yeah, I'm optimistic for them.
I said on the Tuesday show, Adam, that we did a review of the rookie quarterbacks and getting a first look at them. And I did say that all the things I said, both you and Andrew had gone, yeah, of course that was going to be the case. He was that good in college. Like it was like, it didn't surprise me, so to speak, but I was happy to see it. Whereas, you and Andrew were both like, well, no, he's going to be great. And it's looking that way, isn't it? I mean, maybe we are putting a bit too much pressure on. We saw the Nick Saban clip on Hard Knocks about pressure with these rookie quarterbacks. Do you think that needs to be eased off a little bit from him?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. At the end of the day, he is a rookie. You got to remember that. But it's a really difficult one to kind of not put pressure on him to a certain degree. It's the best situation for a rookie quarterback since Dak, probably. I mean, I think back when he came out in 2016, I mean, they had a really good O-line. They had like Zeke and Des Bryant and players like that. I mean, that was a really quite a nice situation for a rookie quarterback to go into. You got to think this is probably the best one since then. They've really kind of given him everything that he could possibly need. I mean, the O-line might be a little bit dodge. That's probably the one concern for him. But to be honest, he had a pretty dodgy O-line last year at USC. So, I mean, it's not something that he's not going to, he's going to be able to cope with that. It's not going to be a problem for him. But if you're bringing in Keenan Allen, you're, giving DJ Moore a new contract, you're bringing in one of the top 3 wide receivers in the draft. I think, again, someone like Rome Odunze, it's going to take him a bit of time, but I think he's got plenty of time in order to be able to get good and stuff like that. And he is good already. That's a lot of firepower. You got Cole Kmet there as well. He's not the greatest tight end, but he's not bad. And you just sort of think, yeah, there's a lot of weapons there for him. And so he is in a really good situation. Similar to Sky, I had ceiling 11, floor 8. I think it's going to take them a couple of years to kind of get into that sort of position where they can properly challenge, considering they're in a really, really strong NFC North now. But yeah, I mean, they made some good moves. I think that they've brought in all the right people to help him. They weren't the worst team anyway, were they? I mean, they went 7-10. They, obviously had the Panthers pick, which is how come they got him. I think they're going to be a solid team. I think it's just too early to start talking about winning divisions and things like that.
I agree. I think they are probably this season's most fascinating watch in terms of that. I think there will be a lot of neutral fans that will want to watch Chicago games to see what we're going to get with Caleb Williams. And there's a real fascination around this team. I think a little bit like the Lions, not last season, but the year before, there was like a fascination around that team. And I think now that's going to be the Bears for a lot of people this season. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Adam, obviously really rubbish news for them coming out yesterday about JJ McCarthy, who's going to be out for the whole season with a torn meniscus. I mean, we probably had maybe a little bit of a different review for Minnesota yesterday than we do today. But now with Sam Darnold under center, a few changes for this team this season as well. What do you expect from them?
Not a lot. I think it's probably the nicest way of putting it. You could argue that they're cursed. I think there's a lot of Vikings fans think that they are at the moment. They've had a real rough off season, and it's not gone great. I think the thing is that Sam Darnold was probably going to start the season anyway. So the idea that losing JJ McCarthy is an absolute disaster isn't probably 100% true, because I don't think he was going to start. I think that you were going to see Darnold anyway. So and Darnold is one of them quarterbacks who, although he's not amazing, he is capable, and I think so he can do a few bits. Aside from that, I think it's going to be really difficult for them. I mean, obviously when you look at their rookies, obviously what happened to Kyrie Jackson was incredibly sad, and that's one of their picks. And now the other one is JJ McCarthy. He's not going to be around, so he's literally Dallas Turner, and that's it. I thought they brought in some good players. I thought Jonathan Greenard at edge, I think, is a really good signing for them. Sam Darnold obviously is now going to have to be a decent signing for them, and I like Blake Cashman and obviously Aaron Jones as well. So they've got some guys there that can do some things. But the fact of the matter is that they have lost Kirk Cousins, they have lost Danielle Hunter, they have lost Jordan Hicks. These are big names for them that have gone. And
Hawkinson's meant to be out for some time as well, isn't he?
Yeah, Hawkinson's going to miss, I think is it the first month or the first 6 weeks, something like that. Jordan Addison, of course, got carted off with an ankle injury, although they don't think it's too bad. I'm not expecting a lot from him this year.
Similarly to what we talked about a moment ago with Jared Goff, I know it wasn't exactly resetting his career, but is this now Darnold's opportunity to reset his sort of story within NFL as well? Because he's bounced the Jets, went to the Panthers, went to the 49ers, and now he's
you read my mind, honestly. And also maybe more comparable, just thinking out loud, I was thinking Goff when we were talking about that, but a Baker Mayfield situation, right? He had his last chance.
I wouldn't say Baker Mayfield's regenerated himself, buddy.
But he had I would say Baker Mayfield in Tampa, it was his last chance. We were talking about and he's now their starter because he got his extension. This is Sam Darnold. He's still 27. People forget that, but it is his last chance. I mean, I always think about him. Where he got clipped up saying, "I'm seeing ghosts" against the Patriots. Like, I think it's been hard for him to get past that narrative ever since, which is a shame. They've got so many playmakers, Minnesota, but I just think they had a bizarre free agency. Like, I know Green had a great year for the Texans, but like swapping him and Danielle Hunter because Hunter was productive for the Vikings, I felt a bit weird. I know they signed Van Ginkel, but like it was just like, I don't know. They were probably the only team of the four in this division where I was just like, where's the clear plan? And look, I know things haven't gone on their way, and I'm really disappointed for JJ McCarthy because I know he threw that pick early in that preseason game, but he still had over 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. He bounced back and he wouldn't have started, but I felt like they were preparing to sit him for him to come in at some point and be with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. But yeah, I can't really put them with a winning record, and I don't mean they're going to be an awful, say, like 4-5 win team. I just see them around that 6-7 win mark. But yeah, it's a shame. But for Sam Darnold, I think like anyone, we all have a good redemption story. So let's see how he does.
I think it's almost one of those things where you're like, if it will be a little bit like if they get to mid-season, they've only won 4 games. You sort of, as a Viking fan, go, well, we might as well let's get the draft pick now rather than NFL because they're good enough to almost be in the top 15 draft picks. You're like, well, if we're picking at 13, does that really change the game that much when we could have picked at like 6 maybe or 5? I don't know. It's been really rough on them. We'll stick on you, Sky. So division wise, how are you seeing this one shape up?
Yeah, I think the Vikings at the bottom, and then see, I know recency bias plays in, and I say about loving Caleb Williams, but I'd put the Bears third, and then Packers second, and Lions first. I do think the Packers can push the Lions, but I'll probably have the Lions at 12-5, then Green Bay at 10-7, Bears 8-9, and Vikings 6-11. So kind of 2 between each. Didn't even mean that, but that's the way I looked at it earlier.
What about yourself, Adam? Where are you hoping the Packers? Obviously, you hope they finish top, but realistically, where are you thinking?
Yeah, I think Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings is the 4. I think the Lions and Packers will be very close, and then the Bears will probably drop off a little bit just purely because I don't think they've got the experience to look at winning at the moment. And then the Vikings. Yeah, I don't see much for them, unfortunately. I think you could be right. I think it could be one of them seasons where you get halfway through and it's a little bit like, we're not tanking, but, we're kind of tanking a little bit. So
it'll be really, what will be a really good measuring stick is when they come to London. I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that'll be, get us seeing them firsthand. I say us, proverbial us, like whether some of us are there or not. We will see them firsthand and see what they are looking like. I think if they come out of London with a win and they're looking impressive, I think that may change it will change the UK. It will change our opinion, I suppose. It will change UK fans' opinion, but it might not necessarily change, world view opinion. But to go on the road with a team that's seen significantly weaker in this division, without your sort of, with JJ McCarthy, yes, Darnold would be starting, but that might be a bit of a turning point for them, maybe if they do a good performance out here.
I guess one thing we could say. Sorry, go on, Adam. You go
Jets.
First.
They're playing the Jets.
Yeah. So that he gets his redemption story. But I think one thing we should say about Sam Darnold, at least he's had a year in San Francisco to sort of learn from an offensive genius.
I thought you were about to say learn from Brock Purdy. No, aged veteran quarterback.
Learn from Shanahan and just have a year to sort of soak information in. And he is in a good spot. We spoke about the weapons that are there, and Kevin O'Connell's he's not a poor head coach, he's a good head coach. So it's not a bad position for them to be in. So, like you said, maybe come London, Fred, the Vikings, he beats his old team, and then we're all like, hang on a minute, Minnesota are decent, but...
Hang on a minute, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, me and Baker's... If we sit next to each other, that would be a story.
Well, I think it's going to be certainly a very interesting division to watch the NFC and the AFC North in one, but myself and Adam obviously going to be very excited about. And hopefully, we're both hoping our teams will atop it and get through to the playoffs. However, I think we are both realistic in our views of that. But thank you for watching. Sky, Adam, thank you for joining me this evening. Make sure you can watch us on YouTube, and also we are on all streaming networks as well, and on social media. Make sure you follow us there. As ever, we are very interested in sponsorship and partnering with other companies and other podcasts out there. So feel free to hit us up in our DMs or email us, because we are very much happy to collaborate. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again soon with another divisional episode next week. Until then, have a good week, and we'll see you all very soon.